Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 41 of the Old Men Magic Podcast. It is Sunday, May 21st, 2023. Thank you for joining us for some casual cardboard conversation. If you'd like to support the Old Men Magic Podcast, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. It feeds the algorithm. Alex, we need to feed and nurture the AI overlords. Today, we're going to continue our discussion of Fires of Yavimaya. We're going to go deep into the My Fires articles written by Zvi Mowshowitz. This is part 2 of our 374-part series on Fires of Yavimaya. I'm very excited about it. Alex is less excited about it. But before we get into part 2, a follow-up to last episode, Alex.
Oh, okay.
Last episode, I didn't talk about anybody's fire deck in particular. I just gave like an overview of some of the creatures that I had seen in various fires decks around the internet when I did some digging. And one of the creatures that you and I both really liked was Shivan Worm from Plane Shift.
Rawr.
This was the rare 7/7 Trampler for 3 colorless, 1 red, 1 green. When Shivan Worm comes into play, return a red or green creature you control to its owner's hand. We were having a discussion about this regarding whether or not, if you didn't have another creature down, a red or green creature down, could you even play it?
Yeah, I'm dumb. Yeah, I saw.
We're both dumb. This always happens sometimes in the discussion. Sometimes I'll listen back to an episode, and as soon as I hear us talking about something, I'm like, of course. But in the moment, I panic. I can't think properly when I'm being recorded.
We were panicking. It would bounce itself.
It bounces itself. Yes, you can play it. If there's nothing else on the board, I mean, you wouldn't want to play it, but you could. If you played this, the bounce is a triggered ability. So when Shivan Worm hit the battlefield, the ability would be triggered. And if Shivan Worm was the only red or green creature on the battlefield, then it would just be returned to your hand. There might be a reason why you would want to do that, but I can't think of any. Maybe you would. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe if there's something conditional that, like, that triggers. But yeah, for some reason, sometimes I don't think about cards like this affecting themselves. You know what I mean? This reminds me also of Cavern Harpy, by the way. Do you remember that card?
Vaguely. Yeah. So yeah, anytime you could do this if you just wanted to trigger and enter the battlefield effect. If there was something on the board that's like anytime a creature entered the battlefield, you could play it, right?
Yeah.
And it would just be bounced back, but it would have been on the battlefield to have been bounced back. I think that would trigger.
Or something says like whenever a creature is returned to your hand.
Yeah. Cavern Harpy. I don't remember exactly what Cavern Harpy does.
I like this card. It's pretty cool.
Also from Plane Shift. Plane Shift is full of this kind of stuff. Creature shifting planes. Shifting left and right.
Hopping up, hopping down, hopping left.
1 blue, 1 black, 2/1 flying beast. When Cavern Harpy comes into play, return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand.
So it would have to bounce itself if you don't have something else.
Yeah. And then you could also bring this back by paying 1 life. Pay 1 life to return Cavern Harpy to its owner's hand. Yeah. Plane Shift is full of that mechanic.
Yeah. But I like that. I have some of that. I picked some of these up. I was like, I want to work this into a deck at some point. Looks like fun.
We both love bounce.
4.1 says on Gather. That's not bad.
Oh, yeah. But that's the only follow-up I think we had to the last episode. Nothing else we were confused by, I don't think. So we're going to move right on to our discussion of Zvi Mowshowitz's 7-article series titled My Fires. Who is Zvi Mowshowitz? I just definitely didn't pronounce his name correctly there. But he's a magic deck builder known for My Fires and Turbo Zvi, which I don't know what Turbo Zvi is yet. Maybe we'll dig into that deck later. Former Pro Tour winner, Magic Hall of Famer, and a writer. And I actually follow him on Twitter. I think I followed him on Twitter before I even knew that he had anything to do with Magic the Gathering, because he writes a blog that's pretty interesting sometimes. Sometimes it's about Magic, but a lot of it is about AI and politics and game theory, stuff like that. Today, I wanted to talk more specifically about some articles that he wrote back in the day when he was playing this deck in the year 2000. In the year 2000. In the year 2000. He covered a lot of the cards that were popular in different Fires decks at the time. And he went through like which cards he chose and why he chose those cards. We're not going to go through every single part of all of these articles. We can't get through that even in the 374 parts that we have planned for this series because these articles are long. Not all of it's going to be relevant. It's like some of the discussion is very like meta focused. So it's very specifically about what was going on at that time, what he was expecting to face. Maybe interesting to some people. Some of it's interesting to me, not all of it. So I will skip some of that stuff. But before we get into the articles, I wanted to set the scene. I found this cool part of the MTG wiki. It's a timeline of Standard. And it goes through all of the different sets that were legal at all of the different time points in Standard. Because as we've been going through some of these decks, I've often wondered why somebody chose a particular card. I often had the question of whether or not they chose that card because they thought it was the best card they could actually slip into their decks, or if that was like the best card that was legal in the format at that time. I didn't know where to find always like which sets were legal and which were not legal when particular tournaments were played. But this webpage has all of that information. So PT Chicago 2000, November 1st, 2000. All these decks were constructed from cards that were legal in 6th edition, Mercadian Masks, Nemesis, Prophecy, and Invasion.
Okay.
So 5 sets.
1,367 cards.
1,367 cards. Another important thing, I guess not important, but interesting to me, is his deck was not the only Fires deck that made it to the top 8 in this tournament. Like lots of people were playing Fires, and lots of people who were getting very far into the tournament were playing Fires. There's this website, Alex. This is MTG Top 8. Has all different formats, and it shows you the top 8s from all sorts of different tournaments that were played on all these different formats. Pro Tour Chicago 2000, Standard, 332 players, the top 8. Number 1 was Rebels. We'll have to talk about Rebels deck someday. Second was Counter Rebel. So Rebels were doing work in this tournament. And then tied for 3rd and 4th place was Fires by Robert Doherty. No Fires by Brian Kibler. Maybe just a joke because he knew everybody was playing Fire, so he just named his deck No Fires. I think it was the same color scheme that a lot of the Fires decks were. Red, green, white.
Probably has like some, variation in there that like makes it be, makes the no relevant.
I think it just might be literally no Fires. He just didn't play Fires of Yavimaya, so it's literally it's not a Fires deck.
Okay.
So he just named it No Fires. John Finkel on Fires. Michael Pustelnik, an innovator in the rock, who we've discussed on this show before, on Fires. And then there was a mono blue deck, and then Zvi Mowshowitz on My Fires. So he wasn't even like the only Fires deck in the top 8. What did we just count? We counted 1, 2, 3, 4 Fires decks. And another guy who played the same color scheme with a lot of the same cards, but just no Fires.
Yeah, okay. So this was hot deck archetype at the time.
Back when I was not playing Magic any longer. I still had all my cards. They were boxed up at my mom's house. I was in college. I was like, I ain't got time for this shit. This is Zvi Moushowitz's. I can't pronounce his name. This is his deck. This is his Fires deck that he played in the 2000 Pro Tour. I'm just going to go really quickly through the cards, and we'll talk about some of the more interesting cards, or maybe not even the more interesting cards, but cards I hadn't seen before, cards you probably hadn't seen before. Could be interesting to people who aren't that familiar with a lot of these sets from this era, like us. 4 Birds of Paradise, 4 Blastoderm, which everybody knows Blastoderm because it was, again, featured on episode 2 of the Old Man Magic podcast, and then also in episode 40 of the Old Man Magic podcast. Now Blastoderm is making its 3rd appearance on the Old Man Magic podcast. 3 Jade Leech, which have you ever seen Jade Leech? I'd never seen
No.
it before.
Okay.
We'll talk about this a little bit. We'll talk about this in more detail later on.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just a big creature. It's a big 5/5 for 4. Green
Yeah.
spells you play cost 1 green more to play.
Very Jazam Jin like.
Yeah, it's a fatty with a downside. 4 Llanowar Elves, 3 2-headed dragon. I had never seen 2-headed dragon before I went through this deck list. 4 colorless, 2 red, 4/4 flyer. Pay 1 colorless and 1 red. 2-headed dragon gets +2/+0 until end of turn. It cannot be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, and it may block 1 additional creature.
That's pretty sweet.
So, it is pretty sweet. It's
Looks
I mean,
fun.
if they don't have 2 flyers out, it's unblockable and pumpable. So yeah, if it hits the board, it's nasty. 4 Assault and Batteries is your favorite cards, Alex. These split cards.
Boo.
Assault is just a 2 damage burn spell for 1 red, battery, 3 colorless, and a green to put a 3/3 green elephant creature token into play. So many elephants available to you, Alex, as soon as you get your elephant graveyards.
I don't know if I can play that one though. Oh, back to vertical.
Probably not this one. Earthquake. We all know Earthquake. That's an Old Man Magic card from straight out of Alpha.
Mm-hmm.
4 Chimeric Idols. An
Artifact
Turtle. 3 colorless. Pay 0 mana, tap all lands you control. Chimeric Idol becomes a 3/3 artifact creature until end of turn. Have you ever seen that Chimeric Idol?
I've seen it like browsing, I guess. I don't know if I talked to you about it ever or not, but it looks familiar.
And then 4 Fires of Yavimaya, which we discussed last episode. 4 Sapperling Burst, which we discussed last episode. People, of course, know these cards from episode 40 of the Old Man Magic podcast. We're at almost 90 viewers, Alex, from that last episode. Big numbers. And then lands Dust Bowl, Forest, Karplusan Forest, Mountain, Rishadon Port. Part 1 in Zvi's 7-part series on My Fires. He says in this article that Fires of Yavimaya is the best deck in the format. Didn't win, but you had 4 placing in the top 8. Lost to Rebels. Best deck in the format that doesn't make it the best deck to play, but it does make the deck a solid choice if it's not being actively hated. I thought that was interesting. This was interesting because I was listening to a podcast when I was driving home from work the other day. It was an episode of a podcast that I think is called I Have Questions. It's a new pre-modern focused Magic the Gathering podcast. I think the host name is William Hurst, and he had a guy named Mike Flores on, and they were talking a little bit about pre-modern and about an upcoming tournament. All the old heads are going to meet in Boston in a couple weeks and play Old Man Magic at some tournament called LobsterCon. There's like an old school event, and I think as of like 2 or 3 years ago, they started doing a pre-modern event too. So it used to just be a straight up old school tournament, I believe. Now it's like pre-modern tournament one day, next day is old school. Which is cool. Maybe if I keep building up my pre-modern collection and get better at deck building, and we become famous in the Magic the Gathering world, maybe we'll get invited to LobsterCon, Alex. We can have lobster rolls in Boston, play Magic. Anyways, in this podcast, he mentioned that they were talking about the mono blue Dreadnought deck that I've talked to you about. The Dreadnoughts coming out on turn 2, trampling people's faces for 12 damage each time they turn sideways. And they were both like, yeah, the best deck is probably, I think this is what they were saying, the best deck is probably Mono Blue Dreadnought. But I don't think either one of them is going to play Mono Blue Dreadnought in the tournament. Because it's like, it's one thing to be the best deck, but even if you're the best deck, and everybody designs decks to take that down, you're not going to win the tournament.
Also anticipate what other people are playing.
Yeah.
It's one thing, because Magic's so complex that you can make the best all-around deck, but there's always going to be like niche case, Yeah. And like you said, also you can, come up against like really strong hate towards what you're trying to do, your colors or your, types of permanents or whatever.
Yeah, no matter what, you could bring the best deck in the world and somebody, if you just say, build a deck to beat this, it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the deck they built to beat it might lose to everything else.
Right.
But they could build a deck to beat it. Yeah. He also said this deck is also a lot of fun, and I love fun, Alex. I love fun. That's why I play Magic the Gathering. Right here, this deck is also a lot of fun. Good reason to play Fires of Yavimaya.
I think Haste is fun.
It is fun. Ball Lightning is fun. Now, Ball Lightning's not in here, but it has Haste.
No one likes summoning sickness on their creatures. No one likes to see their creatures. You're like, oh, I'm so excited. I just got my new creature out. I have to wait to use it.
And then it just sits there doing nothing, and then they kill it.
Like on layaway.
Attack with it.
Yeah. But now with Haste, aha, my new creature, and I get to use them right away.
Part 1 is mostly lands. So remember the last episode, we had a fantastic Old Man Magic Commander Corner segment where I added lands to my deck. And that was riveting. I mean, people were commenting on it in the comment section on YouTube. They loved it. It was one of the best Old Man Magic Commander Corners we had ever had when they were watching me add forests, plains, mountains. But I'm not talking about this shit today. He talks about his forest, his Carplusan forest, his mountains. It's a red-green deck. He added forest, mountains, Carplusan forest to it. We don't need to go into the details about why he chose 10 instead of 11 or whatever the hell. I don't even know the numbers. But I did want to talk about Rishadan Port, Alex. This is a card that I never played with.
Me neither.
Because it didn't exist when we were doing most of our playing.
Yeah, this came out right when we were wrapping it up.
I think I'm on the record stating that I purchased 2 booster packs of Mercadian Masks from what I believe was a Barnes & Noble in Boardman, Ohio. I think they were the last 2 booster packs of Magic Together I ever bought. I have 2 Mercadian Masks rares because of those 2 booster packs. But we never played Mercadian Masks, really. This might be the best card from Mercadian Masks. I love this card, and I'm looking forward to doing some work with it in some pre-modern decks at some point in my life. Rishadan Port is a land, tap to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. You can also pay 1 colorless and turn it sideways to tap a target land. So, what does he say about it in his article? I mean, he basically just goes through, what you would do with a Rishadan Port. Use it when it makes it unlikely the opponent will be able to cast the crucial counter, or when it will buy the crucial turn when they cannot play the Wrath of God or the Nether Spirit or the Blinding Angel due to mana or colored mana problem. So those last 3 cards all need 2 colored mana. Essentially, he's just stating what anybody would do with their Rishadan Port, which is 1, you could use them to mana screw if they don't have a lot of mana out, or they're playing a multicolored deck and they have big spells in their deck that need more than 1 colored mana, you lock down that second mana so they can't counter the things when they normally would be able to counter. They can't Wrath of God to wipe the board clean when they would normally be able to. If all you have to do with a Fires deck is buy yourself 1 or 2 more turns, and that's like 5 or 10 more damage to the face, that could be enough to win the game. So lock down that second colored mana, Alex. I do see Rishadan Port in a lot of pre-modern decks, but I wonder if it should be in even more. It seems like a real bitch in formats where like the mana bases aren't all that great. And by that, I mean like essentially formats that don't have dual lands or multicolored lands that don't like do damage when you tap them and stuff like. And that's how pre-modern is. I mean, you don't have dual lands. So a lot of the times, if you want to make a 3-color deck, it's kind of difficult. And if you have a Rishadan Port on the other side of the table, it makes your life probably even more difficult. You can also very slowly kill your opponent by tapping their City of Brass once every turn. I don't remember when this happened, but I think that actually happened at a big tournament that I read about, I don't know, months ago. I mean, this is an old case of this happening, but it's like a famous match where somebody thought they had their opponent locked down and they were just going to win the game. And he was like, why don't you concede? And then he was like, nah, I'm not conceding. And then he pulled a Rishadan Port and he just once a turn tapped his opponent's City of Brass. and killed him by doing 1 damage a turn.
I've heard tales like this. Yeah.
You could also use it. I mean, a lot of people play Gemstone Mine too. You can waste their Gemstone Mine.
Yeah.
Tap it 3 times, it's gone. He also talks about a couple other things in this section on Rishodon Port. Teferi's Response and Sabo's Web.
Okay.
So I want to pull up these 2 cards because I didn't know. I had heard the name Sabo's Web before. I couldn't remember what it did. I don't think I had ever seen Teferi's Response unless you showed it to me at one point, and I have since forgotten.
I'm more familiar with Sabo's Web. I remember that card. I don't remember Teferi's Response, I don't think.
Okay. He talked about these cards as 2 things that could pose difficulties for you if you're playing the port. And they're both pretty cool. So Teferi's Response is a blue card. It's a rare from Invasion. It is 1 colorless, 1 blue instant. Counter target spell or ability an opponent controls that targets a land you control. If a permanent's ability is countered this way, destroy that permanent. Draw 2 cards. So this would be like if you're playing an opponent that has Wastelands or Rishodon Port, like this would be a great sideboard card. Because as soon as they try to play shenanigans against your land with their Wasteland or their Rishodon Port, you cast Teferi's Response, you destroy it, and you draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's pretty sweet.
I don't know if people main board it. Seems like it wouldn't be the greatest thing to main board.
Art looks sort of familiar, so I'm pretty sure I came across this before. How much is it?
$1.56 in the market. This wouldn't be a bad thing for a commander deck that runs blue. Somebody at the table is going to have a
definitely pick these up, especially as a rare from Invasions, or at only $1.50. I'd get a couple of these. Add to the collection. Has it been reprinted?
Oh, that was a pretty cool card. Just World Championship decks.
Whoa. Interesting
This is
to know.
set to go to the moon, Alex. It's set to go to the moon. I'll cut this part out until we establish our positions, and then we'll talk about it in a later episode.
Okay.
We'll write up a little spec, a post for Reddit. Be like Teferi's Response spec under pros. Cool, unique ability. Never been reprinted. Discussed on the Old Man Magic podcast. Anyways. The other card that can do your Rishodon Port dirty is Sabo's Web. Really weird art. I don't know who these people are.
They're like Weatherlight crew people mostly, I think. Like,
okay.
So yeah, I want to say is that like Gerard down there and Hannah? And
this sounds like maybe a Gerard. I don't know what this
Wrath?
is.
Or I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I don't know, Alex. But I do know that Sabo's Web is an artifact that you can cast for 2 colorless mana. And then when it comes into play, you draw a card. Lands with an activated ability that doesn't produce mana don't untap during their controller's untap step. So basically, you play it, you draw a card, and they only get 1 use out of their Rishodon Port. It locks their Rishodon Port down.
Yeah. This seems like a nice, I don't know, it seems just like an efficient card to me. It's only 2, you draw a card when it comes into play. Then it has that, it's a niche ability, but it's like definitely a good ability to have in, against the right opponent. So for, 2 colorless mana, it's kind of like, seems like a great deal to me.
Yeah, and a format where everybody's going to be running the port
in
the tournament. I mean, it's not going to be wasted.
Any other, format where there's like a strong, use of like special cards like that, like Maze of Iths or
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, Maze of Ith, Library of Alexandria.
How about I wonder how this interacts with like Mishra's Factories. It would probably work on them, right? Because they still count as land, I think. So like they wouldn't untap.
Yeah, it seems like it would work against all the man lands.
I'll look at that. I'll double check that because I haven't used a Mishra's Factory in a long time.
I don't see people play this card in like the pre-modern decks that I'm seeing nowadays, but he talks about it a lot in this article. Like it seemed to be a particular problem back in the year 2000 in tournament decks. Because of these two cards, he states in this article, don't tap or play Irishidon port without a reason. So, yeah, just know that, like, you play that port, these two things could be coming.
Oh, like he's saying, don't use your Irishidon port if you don't have to, because Sabo's Web might be coming out.
Yeah.
Off your land into tap. Okay.
Yeah. So, like, wait
I wasn't even sort of thinking about using Sabo's Web on like lands that are already tapped. You know what I mean? Because it's a status effect. I'm thinking about playing it like preemptively, but that's an interesting point. You can use it after they've tapped the land.
Yeah. So after the port, he goes into Dust Bowl. Talks a little bit about Dust Bowl.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, what's happening?
Okay, and I looked up some comments. Someone says Gerard has a funny face in this. He's all like, yeah. So that's probably Gerard.
Right here.
Yeah.
This gives me He-Man singing What's Going On meme vibes. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Okay. This whole artwork makes me think of Quantum Leap too. I don't know why. I see this. I think about Quantum Leap. I don't know why.
Yeah. All right. That's the one I found so far.
Okay.
I'm sticking with Hannah though, and the person. I don't know, but maybe it's not Volrath, but I'll try to find out. Anyways, keep going. Back to Dust Bowl.
Back to Dust Bowl. Dust Bowl, another card that I see it, but I don't see it all the time. I've never run it. I'm like, are there cases where maybe I'd want to put in a Dust Bowl instead of a Wasteland? I don't know. Dust Bowl, tap to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, or you could pay 3 colorless and tap and sacrifice a land to destroy target non-basic land. So he says, this is V writing, Dust Bowl is a great card in the Fires deck. First reason is the number of lands in the deck. So Fires decks want to play 25 lands because of the casting cost of their cards, but they can't. That would mean there are 33 cards in the deck whose primary purpose is to produce mana. So basically, with all your lands and all of the 8 mana moles that you have in this deck, most of the time you're going to have over 30 mana sources. So he says, then he goes on to say, with Dust Bowl, that becomes possible. Almost no decks run on no basic lands, and this allows the deck to use surplus mana for a good cause. I agree with that. Like, you have a lot of mana sources in this deck. After you get your
sort of like a scroll rack effect to like pump your excess mana into late in the game.
Yeah. After you get your birds and your elves out, you play 1 or 2 big creatures, any other land you draw, it's not really going to be doing a whole lot for you. But if you can feed it into a Dust Bowl to destroy a critical land that your opponent, who probably doesn't have as many mana sources as you, needs, that'd be great. So Dust Bowl just absolutely wrecks control decks, randomly wrecks other decks as well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like it. Like, compared to Wasteland, it's more late game play, I guess. You know, you need to have more mana for it, but then you can use it more than once.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I also wonder if maybe you could play around with, since Wasteland destroys itself, but since this destroys a different land, I'm wondering if there's some way you could play with it to like make use of the fact that you have land going into your graveyard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you could play with something that has an effect when a basic land goes into your graveyard that like wouldn't work with Wasteland, but like with this, if you're sacrificing one of your forests, it would. You know what I mean? Or something that could return lands from your graveyard once you've sacrificed them with the Dust Bowl.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the things like Groundkeeper. Yeah, Groundkeepers specifically. This is the card I always want to play. I never see anybody play it, and I haven't played it yet either, but it's just neat. You know, here we are again talking about lands going to the graveyard and bringing them back. This is every 3 episodes. We talk about building decks around this. Groundskeeper first printed in Mercadian Masks also, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
It does specifically say basic land. It's a 1 green, 1 drop. Sorry, that was redundant. It's 1 green, 1/1. one colorless, one green, return target basic land card from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah.
And you
So
don't
if
have to tap him. So you could like Dust Bowl again the next turn, and then the next turn Groundskeeper and bring 2 lands back from your graveyard.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You could.
So that's interesting. Makes me like Dust Bowl a little more. I noticed Dust Bowl a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure I got 1 or 2 because it was cheap, and I was like, I don't know, I just like having all these lands that do slightly different things. Kind of like you say you collect lands. Sometimes it's nice to just pick up. The art on lands is usually cool.
I picked up a Dust Bowl. I have 1 Dust Bowl. 1714 now.
Oh, maybe I never got a Dust Bowl because I don't think I paid that much money. I thought it was cheap. Never mind.
I have 1 Dust Bowl. Well, this is what MTG stock says. I've noticed that MTG stocks sometimes like the prices are way off. I don't know if it's it seems to be happening more often than it did when I first started looking at price cards. And I don't know if it's just there's a little bit of a lag. Prices are dropping on a lot of stuff, and it's not always. This is pretty close though. Yeah, it says around 17. There's if you want to get a light blade,
mistaken. I definitely
they're 15, 16.
It's just easy to mix this up, but there's a lot of similarly themed lands. Ghost Town and
there is a Ghost Town, right?
I know, no, and I'm trying to think of what the other one was that I might have. There's one we looked at a little while ago that nuts. I'm not going to be able to remember. Is there one that creates soldier tokens?
Yeah, Kildorn Outpost.
No, not that one. Not that.
Oh.
A newer one from one of these, like this era, kind of.
Oh no, there's a Core Haven. It doesn't create soldier tokens, but it prevents damage from attacking
I remember
creatures.
Core Haven. I'll try to remember. I'll get back to you.
But I like the Bull, and I like it in decks like this that have a lot of. You have to have a lot of lands in there because you have a lot of manimals that you want to be able to play on turn 1. But then once you get past like turn 4, turn 5, you're not going to want to draw lands. You're going to want to do something with them. A Dust Bowl gives you an outlet for those lands that might otherwise not do anything later game. Although ideally fires, you never really make it late game.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm wondering in this deck if he needs that, like, maybe just double down on, focus more on just like the aggressive nature of the deck.
He has 2 in. 2.
But I don't know. I guess he likes it. So
normally this will take out a dual land and be well worth the turn lost to tap that mana. Often this will come down to a question of risk against reward. A 3rd Dust Bowl will blow up a Salt Marsh or Coaster Tower, but should it be sacrificed? In general, it should only be saved as Savo's Web. Wouldn't be a big deal, and there is the potential to cripple the opponent's mana base. He then talks about manimals. We're not going to talk about these, Alex. Birds of Paradise and Llanowar Elves. Everybody knows what these things are because they've listened to episode 40 of the Old Man Magic podcast. Also, because everyone who's ever played Magic already knows Birds of Paradise and Llanowar Elves. He did say, I know 8 of the cards in my deck, 4 Birds of Paradise and 4 Llanowar Elves. These are non-negotiable. I agree with Zvi on this point. You need ramp. You need ramp combined with the haste enabled by fires to really get the most out of the big creatures that you want to play in this deck. Remember the dream of a fires player, Alex? It's turn 1, land a manimal. Turn 2, land fires. Turn 3, fatty. If you don't have
Fatty.
8 manimals,
get those fatties.
If you don't have 8 manimals, you're often not going to be able to live the dream of a fires player, which is turn 1, land manimal. What does he say about these? Play the birds first, unless you don't need the red mana and you want an attack and you want an attacker. So sometimes you want to get the elf out and just do 1 damage.
Yep.
You're playing a slow control deck, might as well get that 1 damage in here for a couple turns. Sometimes I play the elf first because I really want the bird. And I just think that my opponent, depending on what they're playing, probably has some removal on their first hand and they're going to bolt the bird. So I play the elf, make them bolt the elf instead, and then I play the bird. And then they bolt a bird too. So that happens.
But now they only have 2 bolts left.
He did say, I think this is about the Land of War Elves. No, he said it about the birds. Doherty sideboarded 2 of them out in the semifinals, and I will never understand that. What the fuck, Doherty? What were you thinking? Anyways, that's the end of part 1 of Zvi's Fires, where he covers his lands, his mana base, his mana moles. 2 lands that didn't make it. Shivan Oasis. This is just one of those lands that it's a dual land that comes in tapped. I don't know if you've seen these.
Yeah, I don't like those too much, but
too slow. You don't want them in a deck like
most
this.
People don't like them too much.
I see them sometimes played in blue-white control decks, and they're not bad for a deck. I actually have them in one of the decks I was building on Moxfield, and it is a blue-white control deck, a slower deck, where I really want to have 2 whites and 2 blues available often.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you need your double blues for counterspell.
You need double blues and double whites for all sorts of things.
Yeah. You might not care about having it, first turn or whatever, but it's a land you can play like mid-game to like increase your colored mana.
Yeah, so they're important in those cases. And it's really most of the time it's going to be needed in a blue-white control deck, never in a red-green Fires of Yavimaya deck. And I didn't know this card, Keldon Necropolis. He chose not to put it in.
I remember seeing that before.
I don't like it all that much. It's a legendary land from Invasion. Tap to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. You could also pay 4 colorless and a red, tap, sacrifice a creature. Keldon Necropolis deals 2 damage to target creature or player. It's just now this is a slow card. And Fires is not supposed to be a slow deck.
I feel like this is just like for a finishing blow, maybe, right?
That's it, yeah. But I mean, ideally you would finish your opponent many other ways that wouldn't require.
You have 5 mana around. I can't imagine. I don't know, 5 mana.
And you got to sack a creature
to tap it and deal 2. Then I could see, but like with 5 mana, like you can do almost anything else to wrap the game up, right? I know it's a limited format, but I don't know.
There's no question that it's horribly expensive at 4 colorless, 1 red. Yeah, I'm not that into it. Part 2, Alex. Part 2 of Zvi's My Fires. He begins with further discussion of Birds of Paradise and Land of War Elves. Not much to learn here, really. He just reiterates that you need to put as much mana on the board as quickly as possible because you're going to use it. You got to ramp out those creatures. And he reiterates, there will be temptation to sideboard some Land of War Elves out in some matchups. Resist the temptation, Alex. It is a mistake to touch them. That's what Zvi says. Do not touch the elves. I'm looking at you, Doherty. But we don't have anything else to say about the Birds of Paradise and Land of War Elves, other than play them, never take them out. He talks about Chimeric Idol. This was new to me, Alex. I had not seen Chimeric Idol before. At least if I had forgotten.
I remember the art. I think I went past it because I was like, what do you use that for?
You use it in a Fires deck. Chimeric Idol is a 3 colorless artifact turtle. Doesn't say artifact turtle, but I'm saying artifact turtle. Pay 0. Tap all lands you control. Chimeric Idol becomes a 3/3 artifact creature until end of turn. So why do you add this to the Fires deck, Alex? I think it's just, well, he said, smooth out the mana curve. You don't have many 3-drops in this deck other than Fires of Yavimaya.
Okay.
So why not put another 3-drop into the deck so you can be more assured that you'll have something hitting the board turn 2 or turn 3. And why not make it a creature?
Okay.
So it's a 3-drop that can attack. Essentially, that's why the Chimeric Idol is in there.
And I guess you just like use this after you've already tapped out for the turn. Like you tap all your lands, and then that way, like you don't have to.
That's how I saw it. So most of the time you're going to be tapped out, especially ideally the way the deck is built, you should be playing things on curve. You should ramp into bigger creatures fast. So if the deck is going right, if you have a good hand, you should be tapping out every turn with things to play. So yeah, essentially you play your thing, tap out, and then you activate the idol and attack. So you don't get to attack with this guy before you play your spells, but who cares? He also mentions that it dodges most of the cards that attack the deck. So most of the cards that were a problem for the deck and the creatures in the deck and the format, the Chimeric Idol can get around. Can't be stopped with Teferi's Moat. Can't be stopped by Wrath of God or Perish. At 3 mana, it's even possible to get them in before a counterspell. So I guess, if you're playing a blue control deck and they know they're playing against fires, they're going to be countering all your creatures. There's a good chance you can ramp into this guy before your opponent even has the 2 blue to counterspell.
Okay.
I didn't know about Story Circle. You mentioned Story Circle as one of the cards that can't stop Chimeric Idol. I saw this and I thought about your commander deck you're building. I know you're already loaded up with defensive cards, but if you wanted, I just thought it ruins your 1 colorless mana rule. So never mind. But it was kind of interesting. Look at these hippies dancing around in their Story Circle with their masks on. They look like they're not really hippies. These are Ren Fair people or cult members. Story Circle is 1 colorless, 2 white. What did you say?
They look like actors.
Yeah. Enchantment. As Story Circle comes into play, choose a color. For 1 white mana, the next time a source of your choice of the chosen color would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. Okay. So it can just be like a circle of protection, whatever you want it to be.
When I see this art,
but not artifacts.
I'm thinking of, what is it? Naked Gun, when she's like, he's like getting berated because he like shot a bunch of Shakespearean actors because he thought they were like stabbing each other.
I have no memory of that, but I don't remember anything from Naked Gun except O.J. Simpson was in it, and I don't even know if that was the original Naked Gun or if that was.
Yeah.
Was he in the original?
Yeah, he was, and I think he came back. Pretty sure.
Leslie Nielsen's dead, right?
He might have just died a little while ago, I think.
Terrible. Let's take a little break from Magic the Gathering for a second. I'm going to Google Leslie Nielsen and figure out if he's dead. This is starting to bother me. He died in 2010.
Oh, wow. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, we're getting to an age now where like all sorts of people that I grew up like watching are dead. And I don't like that. When you first show up on this planet, all the people that are dead were like already dead before you got here. And you're like, yeah, that's just, of course they're not alive. They're old. They're all in black and white. Then you get to a certain age and like people who were alive when you were watching them do things, now they're not alive anymore. It's fucked up.
And then they die like 10 years ago and you feel like it was just 2. And you can't.
Yeah, I wish I didn't. I shouldn't have Googled it. I wish I just thought Leslie Nielsen was still alive. Anyways, what was I talking about? I was talking about Story Circle. Wrath of God. Teferi's Moat. Perish. The Chimeric Idol can also get around Perish. I don't remember Perish. I don't know Perish. Oh, I did.
Oh,
I looked this up and I was like, oh, this is terrible. As somebody who's been building a lot of green creature decks, I don't like this card at all.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Tempest. Just solid. 2 colors, 1 black. Destroy all green creatures. Those creatures cannot be generated this turn. Evil.
Nice. Evil. Cheap, evil card.
Evil color hate. I also thought about this because I'm putting together Steve's Fires, not Zvi's Fires. And maybe I might be overly focused on this because pre-modern is so full of so many like powerful enchantments and artifacts. And because of that, so many people run for disenchants or seal of cleansings or naturalize. It's like everybody needs to have ways to get rid of artifacts and enchantments. And I'm like, the fires deck I'm putting together, if the only 4 disenchant targets you have in your deck are fires, like what are the odds that it ever lasts at all? It just gets blasted off the board like the second you put it down, because everybody always has disenchants or naturalizes or whatever ready to go. Chimeric Idol, this isn't a great reason to put a card in your deck, but it's at least like it can at least eat a disenchant or a naturalize.
No, I know what you mean. It spreads around. All your eggs aren't in one basket as far as the types of permanents you have. You have some stuff that's enchantments, artifacts, creatures that makes it harder for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah, and actually, I'm thinking it's not just fires. It's Sapperling Burst. Remember, that is an enchantment.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It produces creatures, but it is an enchantment. So it's like, put a couple of these in too. Maybe you don't eat a disenchant that your opponent then won't have a couple turns later when you play your Sapperling Burst. Or, maybe they won't want to play the disenchant against the Chimeric Idol because they'll be keeping it for the Sapling Burst. And at least you'll have the Chimeric Idol out there a couple turns earlier to do 6 damage or 9 damage or whatever. So, not a bad card.
Yeah, I'm warming up to it. Once I look at it and try to think of ways to use it and ways it might, be helpful. It's
the downside seemed bad to me when I first saw it, but then mock playing the deck online, you do tap out most of the time anyways. So I like the fact that it doesn't say you have to tap lands. It just says tap all lands you control. And if they're all tapped already, then the downside is just non-existent. Most of the time with Fires decks, you're going to be tapping out to play everything in your hand. After Chimeric Idol, Assault and Battery. Whoa, it's even more wonky, this image on this particular site. I'll pull it up on something else because this is terrible to look at. Assault and Battery. Zvi says most of the time it is assault, but a significant portion of the time it is battery. I think most of the time it will be assault, which is 1 red, deals 2 damage to target creature or player. Battery, like I said earlier, 3 colorless, 1 green. Put a 3/3 green elephant creature into play. So what are you going to want the assault for? Well, you might be playing mirror matches. Other people playing fires. They're going to be putting their birds and their Llanowar elves down. You're going to want to blow them out of the sky, even if you're not playing a mirror match or a green deck that has elves or birds. Not everybody, a lot of people have that early creature that comes out that you want to get rid of. So you need some sort of burn spell just to do 1, 2, 3 damage.
Yeah, I couldn't make a red-green deck without that. Right?
Zvi said, the birds must die, so must the elves, so must the sergeants. And man, the Rishadon airships have got to go.
I
didn't know
about this card.
I didn't know what a Rishadon airship was.
No, I just learned about this.
From the show notes, or did you learn about it from something?
Yeah. And I like this card, by the way.
It's a blue common from Mercadian Masks. 2 colorless, 1 blue, flying, 3/1. Rishadon airship may block only creatures with flying.
This is the kind of blue flyer at a nice low casting cost that I want out of a lot of other blue flyers that are sort of too expensive or wonky in how they work and aren't good. This feels good to me. It's
still, one toughness, which is tough. So many different ways to get rid of it, but I don't know. There's not a whole lot of options in blue.
Yeah, it's a glass cannon type card. It's offensive, but I mean, it's cheap and it flies and it deals 3 damage. So I like that. And the block thing, it only has 1 toughness, so you're probably not going to block with it much anyways.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of forcing you into using it aggressively, which it fits that slot if you need something like that in your blue deck. I like it.
And then he finally gets around to fires, Alex. The deck is named for fires. The general rules for the deck are: when in doubt, play fires, and when in doubt, do not sacrifice fires. The only case where the deck leads with Chimeric Idol is against control early on. Probably just to get a creature in under the counterspell, I guess. But I'm not a very good Magic player. There's a lot of things I don't know, but I didn't need anybody to tell me that not to sacrifice fires. That's exactly how I would play fires too. I'm assuming that's how everybody would play fires. Put it out as fast as you can get it out, and don't sacrifice it. Because the haste that it enables is going to be so much more powerful than pumping something +2/+2 until end of turn.
I think like if you get that the Chimeric Idol down first too, it might draw that, like you were saying before, it might draw that disenchant or whatever, and then you play the fires and they're like, oh crap, I wasted that, I should have used on the fires.
Yeah.
Although I guess, this deck is pretty common in the format, so maybe they wouldn't fall for that.
That's true. Also, the only case where the deck leads with Chimeric Idol is against control early on. Maybe I'm thinking, oh, you want to get in before that. You want to get a creature in before they can cast a counter spell, so you can start doing damage. But also, maybe what he's saying there is try to draw a counter out with your Chimeric Idol. I'm not really sure what he's getting at. I originally thought definitely the first, but maybe the second.
Yeah, I don't know. Either or, both. Yeah.
I think I want to get a creature in under the counter spell. What else does he talk about here, Alex? He also discusses another creature that is famous on the Old Man Magic podcast. Everybody knows Riverboa because we featured it on our Visions Has Some Killer Commons episode. What episode was that? I don't remember. 37, 38, something like that. Zvi is extremely anti-boa. What he says here is, do not play Riverboa. Riverboa is an excellent card and it belongs in many decks, but it does not belong in fires. I wondered why that is. I love the boa. But then, read the article, thought about it a little bit. I kind of get it. What he says is the deck has no use for a 2-drop. That makes sense to me. It makes sense to me in a deck with a lot of land and 8 manimals, because most of the time you're going to want to play a 3-drop on turn 2. It has no use for a 2-drop. You want to skip the 2-drop step.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. Like, he has a pace to his deck and he doesn't need anything, that quick and that low powered, because he's bringing the bigger stuff out fast.
It interferes with the tempo. The other thing is its regeneration ability. Leaving forest open in order to even regenerate the boa is going to interfere with the tempo. So it hinders the deck's ability to use its mana every turn, because Riverboa wants the deck to save mana so it can regenerate. That 1 mana is going to add up. It's going to hurt, especially when Rishadan Port is involved. So yeah, you're not going to want to leave the mana open to even take advantage of the boa's regeneration ability.
Yeah, that was sort of what I started to think when you first started reading it. I was like, oh, maybe you don't want to have to be using the regeneration mana. But yeah, the pacing thing, that makes a lot of sense.
He says here, at one point, I actually thought the key idea I had in the entire format was don't play Riverboa. I might even have been right. Very strong words.
Like everyone else, green was playing Riverboa.
Very strong words. I will also say, Fires by Rob Doherty. It was tied for 3rd and 4th for Riverboa. John Finkel, Michael Pustelnik. Finkel 3 Riverboa. Pustelnik 4 Riverboa.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, man.
Riverboa bait.
Maybe it doesn't matter all that much.
They did well though. So
I need to read an article by Pustelnik and Finkel and Doherty, and then they can tell me why they played the boa. They need to convince me to play the
Riverboa battle.
But when I think this, I'm like, yeah, why do I want the Riverboa? I don't want a 2-drop. And I'm not going to be regenerating it. I guess the reason is if you're playing counter Rebels, I'm assuming this has some blue in it, has some counter spells. Yep, blue. Rebels, I think, might just be straight white. Rebels is straight white. Yeah. Counter Rebel, Mono blue is another top 8 deck. You're always going to run into blue-white control, no matter what format you're playing, no matter what time you're playing. The Boa Island Walks. The Boa Island Walks. But still, I think I agree with Zvi here. I don't want to play the Boa.
Interesting.
Part 3, Alex.
Part 3
of Zvi's 7-part series on his fires. Here he covers alternative burn spells and some of the bigger creatures in the deck. I think today we're just going to cover the burn spells. We'll leave the big creatures for the next episode. That's where we're going to get into the big bodies in the fires deck. I want to go through these burn spells because I don't know a lot of these burn spells. I'm an old man Magic player. I know Lightning Bolt. I know Fireball. I know Incinerate. What else do I know?
Pyroblast.
Pyroblast. That's not a burn spell, really. It's a red spell. But
I was thinking of Pyroclasm.
Pyroclasm. Earthquake. The first alternative bird spell he covers, Alex, is Urza's Rage. Have you seen Urza's Rage?
Sorry, I just saw this now.
Yeah.
Pretty wacky. I'm surprised I haven't seen it before.
It is pretty wacky. For anybody who doesn't know, like myself and Alex, Urza's Rage is a rare from Invasion. There are several reprints, Commanders, Strixhavens. Wow, it's crazy. This art's pretty cool. It's very colorful. Very colorful image of Urza in his coat. It is 2 colorless, 1 red. It's an instant. It has a kicker. Its kicker is 8 colorless, 1 red. So if you wanted to play this with the kicker, whether it's at 9 plus 3, that's 17 mana. 9 plus 3 is 12. You need 12 mana to play Urza's Rage with his kicker. Urza's Rage can't be countered by spells or abilities. Urza's Rage deals 3 damage to target creature or player. If you paid the kicker cost, instead, Urza's Rage deals 10 damage to that creature or player, and the damage can't be prevented.
Can't be targeted, can't be prevented.
So basically, if you have 12 mana laying around, you can do 10 unpreventable damage to your opponent. What is the market price on this one? 96 cents. So that's quite the kicker effect, Alex?
I would put one of the familiars in this deck to make its casting cost reduced by 1.
Okay, because I was going to say, so we can, that's a start. What else do we put in there? A Sapphire Medallion or some shit? I said at a total casting cost of 12, this will almost never be an option, even in a deck with over 30 mana sources. It's almost never going to be an option. You're almost never going to have, how many lands were there in this? 25 land or whatever? You got to get half your land on board. You say, yeah, you have Manimals, but they're fragile. People can pick them off. If they know that you're running Urza's Rage, they're going to pick off your mana producing creatures if they can. You're just never going to get here. The game's going to be over before then. What does he say about it in his article? Well, he said the most important aspect of Urza's Rage is actually just that it does 3 damage every time for 3 mana. That allows it to kill Lynn's Zvi. So Rebels was a huge deck at this time. You can see Rebels won the tournament. Lynn Zvi is their Rebels thing. I don't know that they've continued this much, but they just came out of nowhere. It feels like the Rebels tribe, and they just printed like super powerful Rebels just out of the blue. So Lynn Zvi, Defiant Heroes, 1 colorless, 2 white. Rebel Legend, 1/3. Play X tap to search your library for a Rebel card with converted mana cost X or less and put that card into play. Then shuffle your library. So not even in your hand, just go straight into play. Also pay 3 colorless, put target Rebel card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So Even if they blast the red ball off the board, you put it back on the bottom of your library, you go search for it again, you put it right back out. It's only 3 mana to get this person going. She survives a lot of creature damage with 3 toughness. She doesn't survive a bolt, but she survives a pyroclasm. She survives engineer plagued. Got to get that Urza's Rage in there just to blow Lynn CV, Defiant Hero, off the board.
I mean, I don't know. 3 uncounterable damage for 3 mana is not bad.
That's not bad at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there are plenty of times where, I need the lightning bolt something important, and I would have been happy to pay 2 extra mana to make sure that, it's like being able to cast a counterspell without a card in your hand.
Yeah, I get it. It's not a bad card. It's just, your mind, or at least my mind, automatically goes to that big damage.
Yeah.
10 damage. Can't prevent it. Whoa, you're never going to do that. It's never going to happen. Just pretend like the kicker doesn't even exist. That's how you play Urza's Rage, right? You pretend like the kicker doesn't exist.
Probably, yeah, unless you're going to play some wonky deck like we were just talking about with it, lets you cast it for cheap or something.
Yeah. Next alternative burn spell. Rhystic Lightning. This is a common from Prophecy. No reprints. 2 colorless, 1 red. So that's what Urza's Rage was, right? 2 colorless, 1 red. So we can compare this. This is an instant. Urza's Rage was also an instant. Okay, 1 more damage. Rhystic Lightning deals 4 damage to target creature or player unless that creature's controller or that player pays 2 colorless. If he or she does, Rhystic Lightning deals 2 damage to the creature or the player.
Oh, okay.
So, not bad. I'll say, if you're playing another aggressive deck, most of the time they're not going to have two colorless mana open.
Yeah, or early in the game, like first several turns, they're not going to have.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially up to turn 5,
And even if they do, I kind of like that you have to make them decide to do that. You know what I mean? Especially against control decks, or depending on which turn you're playing this on, they might be really hesitant to pay that.
Yeah, you could want them to.
Do. Yeah.
You could bait them into trying to tap those 2 extra land for some reason that could let you get something else out.
Yeah.
So I see 4 damage. I said this last episode. The ability to do 4 damage can be critical. See a Sarah Angel in the sky? Boom. See a Sangir in the sky? Boom.
Huh.
But he mentioned another card, Alex, that I didn't know about, which was a problem at this particular time. Blinding Angel.
Oh, okay.
The quote from his article is, Rhystic Lightning kills Blinding Angel dead. Ah. Do you know Blinding Angel?
I'm not sure. I have to see the art. I don't think so. Not the name off the top of my head. That doesn't help me.
First printed in Nemesis, I think also printed in 8th and 9th edition. Blinding Angel. Rare from Nemesis. 3 colorless, 2 white. Summon Angel. 2/4 flying. Whenever Blinding Angel deals combat damage to a player, that player skips his or her next combat phase. That's a pretty big problem for a deck that's just like an aggro creature deck with no flying creatures except for Birds of Paradise, and that wants to attack you to kill you. What do you do if they get a Blinding Angel out? You're pretty much in trouble. Maybe if you have 2 birds out, you could block for 2 turns. Otherwise, you're in trouble. You need your Flame Tongue Kavus, which can also blow this out of the sky. But maybe the Kavu isn't enough. If this is a particular problem for you, put in that Rhystic Lightning. Okay. 4.3 on Gather, Alex. Current market price of $5.17. So people are recognizing this card. 20 years later, finally creeped up above $2. Now it's going to the moon. It was above $2 back in 2013. I always want to. I wish there was a site somewhere that went that gave price information all the way back to when the cards were printed.
I know. That'd be good.
This data comes from TCG Player, I think. I think MTG Stocks pulls from TCG Player.
Definitely, yeah.
I think they do.
I don't think it's the only thing they pull from.
I wonder what else they pull from. I wonder when...
It says on there. I think it says on the site.
Okay.
Pretty sure I've seen it before. It's like Card Market, TCG Player, Card Kingdom.
there's probably just no good like online price database. I don't know when all these 2000 doesn't seem like that long ago, but when we think about it, we were just talking about how we would buy cards from people in Fairphoto, Florida with money orders.
Yeah, we were just direct purchasing. It was like Facebook Marketplace almost,
yeah.
but we're just like buying off of forums. And
but that was back in like 96 or something, 95.
eBay, no one was keeping track of like the eBay sales history of this stuff.
There's probably not like a good digital price database anywhere for them to like pull price information from like 2000, 2001, 2002. What somebody could do is find whatever the magazine was where they.
That's what I was going to say. Is the magazines would be like your best choice. That going back that far.
I mean, that's not nearly as good because that's once a month, and it's just one data point, and it's not necessarily what people are paying for it.
Like right, it varies regionally, and it would be like there were plenty of times where we would see what would be in those magazines printed as the price, and people would be like, "No,
yeah,
not really."
But it would still be good to be able to find that information somewhere. Because I'm like, I wonder. Because I thought about this the other not that long ago too, when I first was reading about Call of the Herd, and we talked about Call of the Herd last episode. The sorcery that creates an elephant that has flashbacks, so you can play it again for another elephant. And I was listening to, I think, another podcast. Somebody mentioned that when Call of the Herd came out, it was like a $20 card. Yeah, we know like Balduvian Hordes when that came out, when we were playing, that was an expensive card.
Or how about Jester's Mask and Jester's Cap?
Yeah.
Jester's Cap was like $30. It was like the hottest card in the set.
But if you look at MTG stocks, you go to the Alliance's Balduvian Horde, like all the price information, you see this and you think, oh, this was always a cheap card. No, right. This was like the most expensive card from Alliances when this came out. I would like to have some price information that went back that far.
On the cover of my book, next to Black Lotus and Jazam Jin. So this was like right after Alliances came out, I think, but it shows you that they like had some high hopes for the whatever the hype surrounding that card.
This was the dream of every red deck player back in, when was Alliances? 1996. Yeah, I think so. 1996. You play your Mountain, you play your Lotus, you crack your Lotus, you play your Balduvian Horde.
Okay, so this goes back. I'm glad you brought up this card because it goes back to what I was saying earlier with that. Okay. I forgot the card already, but it was 2 green, 2 colorless, 5/5.
Jade Leech.
The Leech, Leech. This, I don't know, for people who weren't playing in like the 90s, this sort of like power toughness combo and casting cost 5/5 for
5/5 for 4.
Yeah, for 4, and specifically for 2 colorless, 2 of that color. It was kind of like a I don't know what you want to call it. It was sort of common, and it was kind of like a ceiling for creatures. You know what I mean? Like,
that was a problem. It was a problem if you were playing against somebody who got a 5/5 for 4 down early.
Jazam Jin, it was sort of like the classic one at that point. It was a very expensive card. Everyone wanted that. It was sort of like considered the fastest 5/5 creature you could get down, just about. And then they had a few other things that kind of mimicked it, or simulated what it was trying to do. Maybe not quite as well. But yeah, that was kind of like a big, I don't know what you want to call it, like casting cost point and power toughness, like setup.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that.
Anyways, your Rhystic Lightning won't blow your opponent's Balduvian Hordes off the board, but it will blow your Blinding Angel out of the sky. I don't remember how we got to Balduvian Hordes. Leslie Nielsen, Balduvian Horde.
We've gone back too far.
Okay, Zvi's final call on Rhystic Lightning. His Lightning is a Rhystic spell that has to be saved for a specific target in any given opposing deck in order to be good. It's an option, but I recommend staying away. I also won't be playing Rhystic Lightning.
All this is for that, the specific format, though. Like his format was more narrow.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily make it. I mean, that might make a card worse or better, depending on.
I mean, listen, if I'm not playing against you with my Fires deck and you start building a blue-white control deck that has 4 Blinding Angels in it, then Rhystic Lightning's coming in.
Oh, I see.
But just like default, you just asked me to build a Fires deck. Rhystic Lightning isn't going in.
Yes, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of other options, and maybe you don't even want to be focusing on that.
I do like, burn spells or direct damage spells that do 4 damage, though.
I like it, though, yeah, and I would put it in another deck, maybe.
Next alternative, burn spell. Gitu Fire. Never seen this one. A rare from Invasion. Was also printed in the list. It is X colorless, 1 red, sorcery. You may play Gitu Fire anytime you could play an instant if you pay 2 colorless more to play it. Gitu Fire deals X damage to target creature or player.
Okay.
So I'd say about this, it's a steep cost to play as an instant, especially in the Fires deck where you're going to be wanting to tap out to play creatures every turn. Like you're probably not going to have the mana available to play it as an instant during your opponent's turn anyways. It's better late game. Fires doesn't seem like a great late game deck anyways. You don't really want to make it to the late game. Could take out a Ball Lightning. You're not going to face that in this particular format, but outside of the year 2000, this could take out a Ball Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to be expecting that. 3.682 on Gatherer, current market price of 22 cents. What did Zvi say about this card in his article? He said, what about a good old-fashioned Fireball? Finally, there's a good X spell in Standard again. This made me think, just like Lightning Bolt, Fireball hasn't been printed in all the core sets. Fireball wasn't in 6th edition, so Red didn't have a good direct damage X spell that could damage either a target creature or a target player. So that's not a bad idea to put this in your deck. Like sometimes you're just going to you'll be in a situation where maybe you can't get through with your creatures, but you have enough mana and you've gotten them low enough in life total during the previous rounds that if you had an X spell, you could just burn them out. But you don't have Fireball. What do you have? Gitu Fire. Maybe you just want to burn them out. You also build up a lot of mana pretty fast with this deck. A lot of land, a lot of manimals.
Yeah. Having it available as an instant, you could use it as a good combat trick to turn the tide of battle, and I like that.
Yeah.
Use it either as a finisher against your opponent or wreck the creature situation.
That's true. What does he say about this? The ability to burn out Jade Leech and Blinding Angel or go to the head seemed like he had a good chance of making up for the inability to launch a permanent threat onto the table. For now, he has stuck with Assault and Battery, but Gitu Fire is worth testing, Alex. Maybe you and I can test Gitu Fire. I'll send an email to Zvi. 23 years later, I'll be like, Zvi, we tested out Gitu Fire.
Here's the verdict.
Rhystic Lightning. Gitu Fire. What does he talk about next? He talks about Earthquake, Alex. We're not going to talk about Earthquake. We've all seen that before.
Everyone knows Earthquake.
All he says about Earthquake is that it's good in the Rebels matchup, and even then it's not that great. Mm-hmm. Rebels is going to have a lot of non-flying, small toughness creatures. He does mention somewhere in here. Oh. Often the 2-mana searchers in a Rebel deck will be a Defiant Falcon. So this is another... Rebels, they're full of these cards. They can just search your deck, bring stuff up. And I think this one's also a flyer. Yeah, 1/1 flying. So you won't even get this. You won't even get this with the Earthquake. Pay 4 colorless, tap, search your library for a Rebel card with converted mana cost 3 colorless or less, and put that card into play. Then shuffle your library. Defiant Falcon from Nemesis.
He sure looks defiant. Look at him. It's like, don't you tether me?
He shredded him.
I will not be tethered.
We aren't done with the alternative casting cost burn spells, Alex.
Right.
Breath of Darigaz.
Oh.
He's not high on this card. A few people think 4 Earthquake isn't enough. It is. And Breath of Darigas is no Earthquake, Alex.
Okay. All right.
What is Breath of Darigas?
Sounds familiar.
It's an uncommon from Evasion, has several reprints. It's 1 colorless, 1 red, sorcery. There's Darigas, there's his breath. He's grabbing a guy there. He's breathing on these guys. There's a kicker for 2 colorless. Breath of Darigas deals 1 damage to each creature without flying and each player. If you paid the kicker cost, Breath of Darigas deals 4 damage to each creature without flying and each player. It's an Earthquake. Earthquake is red X for 1. If you played an Earthquake with 2 mana, you deal 1 damage to each creature without flying and each player. Here you play the kicker cost, you do 4. Isn't this better than an Earthquake? No, it's not.
Only
if you
yeah.
Only if you want to go to 4 damage.
Price point to put it like if you want to do a 1-point Earthquake, it's exactly the same. You can't do a 2-point Earthquake or a 3-point Earthquake. For a 4-point Earthquake, it's 1 mana cheaper, and you can't do a 5 or 6 or above. So
Zvi is right. This is no Earthquake.
I kind of like it though, in a sense. Like it's certainly less versatile than Earthquake, but it's more mana efficient to deal 4 damage.
Gatherer likes it. Gatherer gave it a score of 4.267.
Really?
Current market price of 0.31. That does seem much. That's much higher than I thought it would have been.
I was kind of, I don't know. I
You would have been
highly rated. I was like, I kind of like it, but
3.62.
Wait, what?
You would have ranked at 3.62.
Oh.
Let me check that. I believe I looked at this earlier. I believe it's that does seem abnormally high. This is a segment of the podcast where I confirm that Gatherer users gave Darigas a rating of 4.267. 45 votes. Anywho, Breath of Darigas does not make it into Steve's Fires, Alex.
That's fine.
The next alternative casting cost. Not alternative casting cost. Alternative burn spell. Scorching Lava. I say about Scorching Lava, it is unremarkable. It is a common from Evasion, no reprints. 1 colorless, 1 red. Instant. Kicker for 1 red. Scorching Lava deals 2 damage to target creature or player. If you paid the kicker cost, that creature can't be regenerated this turn. And if it would be put into a graveyard this turn, remove it from the game instead.
So no regeneration and exiled.
What do you do with this? You could burn out a River Boa in a mirror match. You're playing no boas. Finkel's playing boas. Pustonik's playing boas. Doherty's playing boas.
You gotta have the anti-boa lava.
What does Zvi say about it? I mention this only because of its existence in states decks. I don't know what a states deck is, but based on what comes next, I can figure out generally what a states deck is. It seems to have died out. Its basic purpose was to get rid of Nether Spirit and maybe Pyre Zombie for good. Those concerns are no longer as large as they were in the past. So those are 2 things that come back from the graveyard. So yeah, it's what you said earlier. Anti-graveyard tech, anti-regeneration tech.
Spirit as well.
Nether Spirits are rare from Arcadian Masks. 1 colorless, 2 black, 2/2 creature spirit. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Nether Spirit is the only creature card in your graveyard, you can return it to play.
I like that.
I don't know what Pyre Zombie is. Pyre Zombie. A rare from Invasion. Oh, it's red-black.
I've seen this.
Creatures. I've never seen this before. Creature Zombie, 2/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Pyre Zombie is in your graveyard, you may pay 1 colorless, 2 black. If you do, return it from your graveyard to your hand. You could also pay 1 colorless, and 2 red to sacrifice Pyre Zombie. Pyre Zombie deals 2 damage to target creature or player. Okay, so he throws himself on the pyre, creates a fire. You bring him back, throws himself on the pyre again, creates another fire. Interesting.
Yeah. Seems like a fair amount of mana to get him to do his 2 things.
It is.
But, I mean, I don't know.
I like it from a game design perspective.
Cool.
It's fun.
How it does its thing.
Yeah. I wonder why this was ever a large concern in the past at like high level competitive Magic the Gathering tournaments. Like you said, it seems so mana inefficient that this would just be the kind of thing we would play for fun on the kitchen table, not necessarily in tournament decks. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to go with meta again. I think, just in the right format, maybe there wasn't, it fits a niche or works with some other cards that, I don't know, that would be my guess. Let's see what he has to say about it.
He says nothing about Pyre Zombie.
Oh.
He only mentioned it, Scorching Lava. Its basic purpose of Scorching Lava would be to get rid of Nether Spirit or Pyre Zombie if you were facing people that played those often. Not going to put it in his deck. It's not going to be in Zvi's fires. It's also not in Steve's fires. Alex, that brings us to an end of today's Fires of Yavimaya discussion, I think, unless you wanted to continue. I think next episode we'll continue with the discussion of the creatures in his deck. Also talk about the sideboard options that he discusses, and then maybe not get into the meta. There's a lot of the last 2 articles in the series are really heavy about the meta. Maybe there'll be some interesting. I'll dig through those. Maybe we'll find some interesting cards that we don't know about, and we'll just bring those up, have a discussion about the cards.
Cool.
But for now, Alex, it is time for the Old Men Magic Commander Corner. We're just returning from a blue screen of death. I was getting tired, Alex. We were late into the episode. I was feeling sleepy. I was like, maybe today I won't do the extended recap of the pump. But we had the blue screen of death. I had some time to get some coffee. I got up. I did some stretches. I'm revitalized. I am ready to go. Welcome, everybody, to the Old Man Magic Commander Corner. This is the part of every episode where Alex and I build with you, the viewers, our first ever commander decks. These are old frame commander decks. They're going to be terrible. Mine is named The Pump. My commander is Jacques Levert. He's a summon legend. He gives all of my green creatures +0, +2. I have 3, count them, 3 major themes to the pump. One is a pump theme, where I pump my creatures like Jacques Levert do. The other is a trample theme, where I pump my creatures and then I trample over my opponent's blockers like tramplers do. The third theme is I have a token generator theme too. So I have lots of token generators built into the deck. I can pump with Jacques Levert. I can pump with Keza, who gives all of my creatures plus green creatures +1/+1. All of my creatures are going to be green. I could pump creatures by tapping my Waioli Wolf and giving any creature in play +1/+1 until end of turn. What else can I pump with, Alex? Lots of things. I can pump with Giant Growth. I can pump with Invigorate. I can pump with Berserk. I even added some artifacts with pumping ability. Power Matrix. I can tap it to give my creatures +1/+1 and flying, first strike, and trample until end of turn. I can pump with Rancor. I can pump with Hermari's Wake. I can pump with Fires of Yavimaya, which everybody knows because Fires of Yavimaya has been featured in episodes 40 and 41 of the Old Man Magic podcast. I can also pump with Armadillo Cloak. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has trample. This also fits in the trample theme, as does the Power Matrix, as does Rancor. Token generators, Alex. I have Deranged Hermit. When Deranged Hermit enters the battlefield, they create squirrel tokens. I can generate Sand Warrior tokens with my Hazazon Tamar. I can generate tokens if somebody damages my Saber Ants. I can generate tokens if Rith the Awakener gets through. You don't want me to Armadillo Cloak Rith, but I'm going to do it. I can generate tokens with spontaneous generation. I can generate tokens with sapling symbiosis. I can generate tokens with aura mutation and artifact mutation. Today, Alex, what am I going to add to the pump? I'm going to add some Thornscapes.
Oh.
No pumpers, no tramplers, no token generators. Just interesting white, green, red cards. I'm going to add Thornscape Apprentice. I don't know if Thornscape Apprentice will last in this deck, but I'm going to give it a try for now. Last week was a very exciting week for the viewers of the Open Magic Commander Corner because they got to see me add my basic lands to the deck. So I think I've pretty much filled in my mana base. I think I have like 70 to 80 cards in here now, so I still got quite a few spots to fill. One of them might be filled with Thornscape Apprentice. I'm going to switch that to the Invasion printing, I believe. Thornscape Apprentice is 1 green for a 1/1 creature wizard. I can tap and pay a white to tap target creature. I can also tap and pay a red to give target creature first strike until end of turn. So an interesting little utility creature for red, white, green decks. My cat keeps opening my door and I keep shutting my door. I'm also adding Thornscape Familiar.
Aha.
I'm actually not sure if this guy will stay in here either. Let me remind myself what it does. Red and white spells you play cost 1 colorless less to play. So that still it still helps me out with quite a few cards. Most of my creatures are green. I do have a few gold creatures in the deck. So this would help me get out Jacques a little bit faster. Help me get out Hazezon faster, which I need. Help me get out Rith faster. Help me play my wheel faster. You know, it doesn't really do much for my red and white spells that I have in the deck so far. So the Familiar's going in for now. Not sure if it's going to stay.
I know it messes up your green creature thing, but what about putting the off-color Familiar in so that it reduces the green casting cost?
That is psychotic, Alex, but I like the way you're thinking. You're thinking like a lunatic. You're thinking out of the box. And I actually believe I have the red Familiar because I first ordered Thornscape Familiar and somebody sent me the wrong cards.
Oh.
So I think I have a copy of the red Familiar. I can't remember what it is.
So the red do green? I'm pretty sure the white does green. I can't remember what
somebody must do green. Look up the Familiars while I add my next Thornscape. Google like MTG Familiars. It'll pop up. But then they won't get pumped by Jacques Laver. He won't get pumped by Keza. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. The third Thornscape I'm adding today, this one will stay in. I'm almost positive. Thornscape Battle Mage. We're going to go down to the plane shift version. Battle Mage is 2 colorless, 2 green, 2/2 wizard with kickers. Kicker of red and or white. If you pay the red kicker cost, Thornscape Battle Mage deals 2 damage to target creature or player, so you can use them when he enters the battlefield to pick off another creature. Or just to do 2 damage to somebody. If you pay the white kicker cost, destroy a target artifact. So I like that. There's often going to be an artifact that I'm going to want to blast off the board. I could do that with Thornscape Battle Mage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You have a Familiar update, Alex?
Not yet, no. Oh, okay. Sunscape. Green spells and blue spells cost 1 less. He's the white one. And the red one is Thunderscape. Black spells and green spells cost 1 less.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you could do either the white or the red.
There's my cat's climbing up the back of my chair.
Hi, cat. The first
Sunscape Familiar
on the podcast, Steve.
First time ever.
Oh,
welcome to the Old Man Magic
Skyrock
Corner. I don't like the Sunscape Familiar. What was the next one? I don't have this one either. Did somebody send me a Thunderscape Familiar? Yes, I do have a Thunderscape familiar. This is what they sent. Black spells and green spells you play cost 1 less to play. How many green spells would that help me out on?
Hermit.
Deranged Hermit, Hazezon, Keza, Seedborn Muse, Saber Ants, Rith, Quirion Elves, Sky Shroud Elf, Battle Mage, Tracker, Wailuli Wolf, which I already pay for one. I play that for just 1 green anyways, because the one colorless is dark and nobody can see it. And then Uktabi. Maybe. Not a bad idea. You know, I am going for all green creatures, but maybe. It's also green spells, too, so it helps me play out my Saproline Symbiosis faster, my Spontaneous Generation faster, my Invigorate faster, my Library, my Marori's Wake, the Fires, the Shards, the Armadillo. Not necessarily faster.
But now the
but it's less mana.
One would help with those guys, too, with those spells, too.
Yeah.
If you had the Thornscape familiar in. So, you know, you have to
decide. Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because these are red, green, white.
Yeah, but the Thunderscape will help with more things in the deck, I think. It's just, you know, it won't be a green creature.
Yeah, gotta think about that. But for now, they're in.
All right.
Now they're in. Yeah, my Thornscape familiar does do work for me on the enchantment side, so that's good.
I like those familiars. When I saw them, I was like, oh, I definitely want to try playing with these. I like the idea of reducing my casting costs.
I think they definitely got good play back in the day, too.
Really?
I know the Battle Mages did. I think the familiars also did. Now we're going to move on to Alex's deck. Alex is going to add some cards to his deck today. Alex's deck is named Group Hug.
Group Mud.
What? Damn it. It's a Group Hug deck named Group Mud. There we go.
Based off of a Group Hug deck, kind of gone off in a bit of a different direction, but I'm playing a defensive, non-threatening deck. That's the idea. I want it to be multicolor, so I chose Corona False God as my commander.
Nothing threatening about this card at all.
Well,
nothing threatening.
She hops around and helps my opponents occasionally, so, you know, as far as me being threatening, you know, they might be glad to see her hanging out as my commander. My other cards are meant to defend me and bide my time, maybe interfere with my opponents as they're attacking each other and doing different things to each other.
Hide behind your walls. Gonna hide behind your wisp. You're gonna fog me with generators,
fog creatures, fog spells, bounce spells to boomerang things back at my opponent if they try to attack me.
Steal things from me.
Steal things.
You're going to darkness me, which is a black fog, which is a green holy day. You're going to tangle me. What else are you going to do, Alex?
Are you asking what cards I'm adding?
Yeah, what are you going to do today?
Is that the bottom of my list, by the way?
I think the artifacts. Oh, yeah, a bunch of enchantments, too.
Enchantments. I'm not worried about. Okay, I want to make sure I had the Spirit Link in there. That's good. That's good. I'm woefully behind on my lands. We'll address that later. I want you to do one favor for me. Huh?
4 lands so far.
We're getting there. We're getting there. We all know it has to happen. It's going to happen. I want you to take out the Despotic Scepter. Get rid of that guy.
Okay. I always suspected this was going to happen.
I went in a different direction, you know, than I thought maybe I was going to go with swapping things and trading things and stuff. Instead, if I want to do something to one of my permanents, I'm going to bounce it. I don't need to destroy it.
Very target permanent. Boom. Removed from the deck.
Yeah, out of there. Speaking of bounce, I haven't put a Man of War in yet, so I want to put a Man of War in.
Oh, okay.
That might be my last bounce spell for a while.
Man of War. Love the Man of War. Featured on multiple episodes of the Old Man Magic podcast. The only reason it wasn't featured on the Visions Has Some Killer Commons episode, I believe we left it off there, was because we had discussed it on the Enter the Battlefield Creatures episode already. In depth.
So, my next card, decide which one I want to add today. I need some removal. I also need some card draw. And in case you didn't notice, I'm starting to get a fair amount of enchantments in this deck. So I'm kind of doing like a mini enchantment, enchantress-y kind of theme on the side. I have Femeref Enchantress in there.
Right there.
That's good because it works on my opponents when they get their stuff destroyed, but it also keeps people from wanting to destroy my defensive enchantments. Since I'm talking about that, I'm just going to go ahead and say I've talked about this card a few times. Rain Academy Chancellor. I'm going to add her to the deck. Spelled Rayne. She is a legendary wizard who allows me to draw cards when my permanents become the target of spells or effects.
Where'd she go?
Where'd she
right
go?
there. She's a blue creature.
She's a blue creature. So whenever any of my permanents are the target of a spell or ability, a Rashadan Port, if you will, I get to draw a card. And if she's an enchantment on her, it's 2 cards.
This is pretty cheap too, right? Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, she's a good price. And the only printing.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Interesting card in my mind. As soon as I saw
$1.46.
I've been
rare from Urza's Destiny. Sorry, interrupting you. Not reserve list, but never been reprinted. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know if I should add that. I'll just throw one more card in here. I don't know if I'm going to keep this in, but I was thinking about Alexi's Cloak as well. It's another enchantment. It prevents my things from being the target of things.
Where did you go? Below the artifacts. Alexi's Cloak. There you go. Looking creepy, Alexi.
Yeah, he's pretty creepy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'll keep that in. I don't know if I want to start going down creature enchantment road, but I probably will put some in here. So it'll be an extra layer of defense on some of my things like Rain or my Will o' the Wisp or something like that I want to use as a blocker. So we'll see. If I start to get too many cards, I might take something like that out again.
Yeah, it's good in combination with Rain.
Yeah. Put it on her.
Or Windborn Muse.
Okie
dokie, Alex.
Okie dokie, Steve.
How about you had a land?
Huh?
How about you had a land?
Okay. How about are we like going like tit for tat on the duels? Is that how we're gonna keep like the same number of duels as each other, or like
doesn't matter,
fair, something like that? I'm gonna put a couple duels in my deck.
Okay.
I've been thinking I'm gonna focus mainly on the green ones. If I have to take out the scrub lands, I will, but I want to put in a Savannah and a tropical island.
Savannah's the best of the duels.
Is it?
It's the one people always. It's the cheapest one. I think it's the one people like the least. But I like white green. I just do. So I don't mind that it's always the cheapest. There we go. Revised Savannah, revised Tropical Island. Your mana base is filling out. You got 5 mana producing lands. Love to see it.
I have a bunch more things. I'll have some more multicolored artifacts, probably something like a Lotus Petal or one of those off Lotus items.
I'm going through this year. It's your deck is mostly green blue, I feel like. Green, blue, white.
Yes. I would say, yeah, in order it's like green, blue, black, or green, blue, white, then black and red.
Yeah, black and white might be like lined up, yeah.
I have like one or 2 more red cards I want to add. Yeah, not too much else on deck for black, I don't think. We'll see.
Well, there you go. It
It's
was another.
I'm starting to feel better about it. A little bit better.
Oh, yeah, it's filling in. It was another successful Old Man Magic Commander segment. and another successful episode of the Old Men Magic podcast, Alex. We are chugging along. We're growing every week. We're at 70 subscribers. If you would like to support us, please subscribe. Please tell your friends and family members. I don't tell anybody I know because I don't want people I know watching the podcast, but all of you listeners out there, you can tell people you know. Spread the word. I have nothing else to say, Alex. Do you have any words of wisdom to leave our viewers with?
Chug.
Okay. That's it. I said words.
Chug?
Chug a lug, maybe. I don't know. Okay. Talk to you later.
Peace.